In a forest far away, there is an enchanted kingdom, surrounded by mountains and rocky lakes, where Princess Elian's family lives. The creatures that live there are unlike anything we know, and there's nothing the princess likes more than flying on the back of her pet, which has the head of a feline and the body of a bird. After a long morning of flying, in the company of her friends, Elian returns to Lumbria and flies to the castle, as she has another royal appointment to fulfill. On that day, the girl is turning 15 and informs them that she won't be able to invite her friends to the party, as her parents have decided to have a ceremony only for her closest family members. On arriving at the palace, the girl is greeted by Flink and Minister Nazar takes her to the room where her parents, who have been turned into monsters, are trying to devour Minister Bonimar. Luckily, Elian knows how to distract them and plays with her parents as if they were pets. A few months ago, the king and queen were cursed and turned into those beasts. So far, no one has been able to figure out how to reverse the spell in Elian, along with the castle staff, has done everything to keep the curse a secret, to avoid causing panic among the kingdom's residents, even in the face of everything she's been through in recent months, and knowing that she runs the risk of never getting her parents back. Elian always manages to stay calm and does her best to make up for the absence of the king and queen. Since then, the princess has become overwhelmed and has had to give up part of her childhood, having fun with her friends to take on royal duties. After locking her parents back in their cages, Elian discovers that General Cardona is trying to enter the palace once again to talk to the king and queen. The problem is that the soldiers still don't know about the curse, and every time it appears, the ministers have to come up with some excuse to justify the king's absence. This time, Bonimar says that the couple have gone away for medical tests, so Cardona says he'll be back the next day and won't leave until she's met the king and queen in person. Every day that passes, Elian becomes more apprehensive because almost a year has passed and no one has yet been able to figure out how to bring the king and queen back to normal. That afternoon, the young woman receives a visit from the royal letter carrier, who has come to deliver the message the princess received in response to her question to the oracles of the sun and moon, who live in the dark forest, to ensure that Elian's message reached the recipients. The letter carrier sent 8 of his best carrier pigeons on this mission. However, when they arrived in the dark forest, 7 of them consumed the enchanted petrified fruit and immediately turned to stone. Luckily, one of them managed to return with the answer, but he ended up being turned into a rock when he arrived at the palace, as he had also eaten the petrified fruit. After delivering the message, the letter carrier leaves in. After wetting the small piece of paper, Elian has access to the message, recorded by the oracles at that moment. The creatures introduce themselves and say that they were intrigued by the spell cast on the king and queen, so they decided to go to the palace in person on the princess's birthday to analyze the case, believing that the oracles will bring her parents back. Elian rushes to break the news to the ministers, who are currently hatching a plan to get the princess to take over her parents' throne, as the kingdom will soon fall apart if it continues without someone to rule it. So when Elian shows up to break the news of the oracle's arrival, Nazar and Bonimar celebrate, but warn the girl, if the king and queen don't return to normal, they will both be sent to the countryside, where they can run happily through the fields, and the princess can visit them whenever she wants. But she will have to take over the throne from her parents, even though she knows she's not ready to be queen. Elian decides to go along with the deal, as she's very confident that the oracles will solve the problem. That afternoon, while celebrating her birthday, in the company of her parents and the castle staff, the princess is informed of the arrival of the oracle of the sun and moon in a surprise, to discover that they are not as mystical as she had imagined. After receiving his payment for transportation, the giant toad leaves, while Luna and Sunny introduce themselves. The truth is that they thought when Elian referred to her parents as monsters in her letter, she was just using a metaphor, as she was going through her rebellious teenage phase. However, when he discovers that the king and queen have really been bewitched. The oracles say that if they don't return to normal soon, they will be monsters forever. Just as they are about to reveal what Alien needs to do to break the curse, Luna and Sunny are devoured by the Queen. But the monster soon puts them back together again. At that moment, the king starts chasing them, and the oracles jump out of the window to try and escape. Luckily, they are rescued by the giant toad, who takes them back to the dark forest. Looking out of the window, the princess sees her only hope of bringing her parents back slipping away right before her eyes, and she despairs, frustrated. Alien asks the ministers to prepare the ceremony, as she knows she will have to become queen that night. The young girl takes a piece of cake to her parents, and while lamenting the fact that they will never return to normal, the princess decides to pay a visit to the main hall, which has been completely destroyed by the monsters. As she walks through the different rooms of the castle, Alien remembers the good times she had with her parents, and all her memories come flooding back. That night, the young woman dreams of the moments she would like to relive with them, and when she wakes up, she realizes that the king and queen have fled because she forgot to lock the gates. Because of her, monsters are now loose in the city, terrorizing the residents, and she needs to fix it before the king and queen are eliminated by General Cardona's battalion. Seeing her parents surrounded by guards, Alien realizes that they have no choice but to reveal their great secret and declares in front of the whole kingdom that those monsters are the king and queen. That night, the citizens gather at the palace to ask questions about the future of Lumber and are delighted when they discover that the princess will take over the throne. However, for their safety, they demand that the monsters be sent far away from the kingdom, and the general decides to comply, as she believes that the king and queen are a threat to her own people. The next morning, while thinking of a plan to free her parents, Alien realizes that Flink is hiding something and finds the magic control that the oracles forgot in the castle at the time of their escape by pressing one of the buttons. The young woman contacts the duo and begs for their help. However, Luna refuses to return to the kingdom. Sunny advises Elliot to use the controller as a guide to find their hiding place in the dark forest. With the device in hand, the princess transforms her parents' cages into a means of transportation to take them to the oracle's hideout. And then, the red carpet is transformed into a carriage to transport the girl and Fling to the dark forest. Believing that the princess is in danger, Cardona immediately gets on a horse and goes after her. At that moment, Alien takes the reins of the carriage and enlists Flink's help to use magic control and get rid of the soldiers who are trying to catch up with her to prevent the princess from escaping. Cardona orders the soldiers to close the gate, but once again, Flink manages to use magic to open the passage. Even after leaving the kingdom, the royal family continues to be pursued. So Alien sends some monsters to try and stop the army, and the general hitches a ride with the flying feline to make sure the princess can't escape. The royal family is about to enter the forest when Minister Nazara throws her husband on top of the carriage so that he can try to convince Alien to give up the flight. At this point, Flink is almost crushed, but manages to use his control to switch bodies with Bonimar. Then, as the carriage climbs the cliff that protects the kingdom, Flink falls out of the vehicle and the minister panics when he realizes that he has swapped bodies with the rodent thanks to the magic of control. The girl manages to enter the forest with her parents, and after falling, the monsters manage to escape from their cages. By now, Bonimar is panicking because he doesn't know how to return to his body. But Alien tries to calm him down by telling him that very soon they will meet the oracles. Then Luno and Sunny will sort out all the confusion. At that moment, Bonimar begins to smell different aromas coming from the forest and realizes that being in the body of a rodent also has its advantages, as he now has a much more accurate sense of smell. Suddenly, the princess sees the bush in front of her, turning into an owl, and the bird flies away, leaving its giant eggs behind. As she gets closer, Alien realizes that these aren't real eggs, but the hiding place of Luna and Sunny. After returning magical control to the oracles, The princess asks them to undo the spell, but Sunny reveals that he doesn't have enough power to do so. According to the pair, only the king and queen can undo the curse. Upon hearing this, Elian loses all hope of ever seeing her parents again, as she knows that under these conditions, they have no way of undoing the spell. However, the oracles say there is still hope, and explain that the king and queen only turned into monsters because the curse caused them to lose their light. Then Luna and Sunny reveal that, in order to become human again, all they need to do is recover their glow, so that the couple can get rid of the darkness. According to the pair, at the top of the highest mountain in the dark forest is the Lake of Light. To help her parents regain their humanity, Elian must take them there. During her journey, the princess has to be careful not to be overtaken by the shadows, because they feed on bad feelings and get bigger and bigger until they make you lose yourself inside yourself. After receiving all the necessary guidance, Elian begins her journey in. The oracles say that the light will guide her to the lake. When the young girl and her parents go their separate ways, Luna and Sunny return home, and the owl returns to protect the hideout. Even against his will, Bonimar follows the princess, because in order to recover his body, he needs to return safely to the kingdom of Lumbria. A few hours later, when she reaches the halfway point, the princess spots some soldiers flying over the forest and calls her parents to hide inside the trunk of a large tree that has been felled. However, while the royal family is hiding, Bonimar starts shouting for help in an attempt to attract the soldiers' attention, and the girl has to go and get him before Cardona finds them. The teenager then realizes that her parents have disappeared, so she decides to go into the dark trunk to look for them, and is amazed to discover that inside, all the sound waves turn into bubbles of light that spread throughout the tunnel. However, Elian soon realizes that not all sounds turn into blue bubbles. Many of them are transformed into red rays that destroy everything they encounter along the way. The difference between these two sounds is the content of the words and the intonation with which they are said. While words of affection become light, negative words and shouting can be used to hurt. While walking through the tunnel, the two monsters start fighting, and their growls turn into arrows used to attack each other in an attempt to calm them down. The princess runs towards them but ends up being hit on. Realizing that Elian has been injured, the monsters immediately stop fighting, but the girl begins to feel guilty and powerless. Suddenly, the shadow that the oracles warned her about approaches to imprison her and feed on her bad feelings. When they see that their daughter is being sucked into the hurricane, the king and queen shout for her, and the blue bubbles end up pushing the shadow away. Together, the trio make it to the other side of the tunnel, and Elian is relieved to see her parents talking, but discovers that they still have no idea who they are. Despite having regained the ability to speak, they still haven't regained consciousness, and continue to fight until the princess decides to intervene. After what happened back there, the monsters realize that fighting in that forest is not a good idea and agree to make up in order to continue their journey without any further surprises. During the walk, the king and queen make new discoveries and have fun with their daughter, as they haven't done for a long time. Noticing this evolution, Elian begins to nurture within herself the hope that, at the end of that journey, her parents will be 100% who they were again. But Bonimar doesn't believe that this is possible. That afternoon, the glow the princess was following disappeared, and she spent several hours waiting for the point of light to appear again. Not knowing where to go, the girl decides to help her parents recover their memories and is thrilled when her mother calls her by name. Just then, a new spark of light appears on the horizon, and the group continues its walk. At dawn, Cardona finds the trail of the royal family and discovers that the king and queen and their daughter spent the night on that cliff. With Flink's help, the general finds the trail of chestnuts left by Bonimar and orders her men to fly over the entire region. When she realizes Bonimar's plan, Elian scolds him and says that if he tries to sabotage the mission one more time, she asks her mother to carry him around in her mouth. Suddenly, The team begins to step into a pool of quicksand and has to climb on the rocks to avoid drowning. The princess quickly realizes that the sand becomes solid when it comes into contact with sunlight. So the secret to getting to the other side is to escape the shadows cast by the clouds. At this point, her mother and father begin to discuss the best strategy, and Elian realizes that a huge hurricane is approaching. After catching Bonimar, the girl flees with her parents and is followed by the general in her army. However, as the hurricane approaches, the clouds begin to gather, and during the crossing, Cardona orders her troops to retreat to dry land, as several of her soldiers have been caught in the quicksand while her parents are arguing. Elian sees a white tiger cub about to sink into the sand and asks her father to help her reach it. Immediately, the king jumps into the sand and swims away, pushing the stone to the other side. But the feline ends up being carried away by the torrent, and the princess asks her mother to carry her so that she can reach him. When the cub was about to fall into a waterfall, Elian jumped in to rescue him and was saved by the queen, who grabbed her with her tongue and took the girl to safety. When everyone is safe, the storm recedes, and the princess has the chance to return the baby to its parents. Just then, she sees the royal troops approaching, and the king manages to create a cloud of sand to throw them off with the help of the flying felines. The group manages to reach the labyrinth, but Elian and Bonimar end up getting lost from the rest of the team. Suddenly, the pair are surrounded by hundreds of flinks, and Bonimar is terrified at the sight of these rodents. But the princess knows they're harmless and asks for their help to find her parents. At that moment, in a totally unexpected way, Bonimar ends up making friends with those creatures and even agrees to taste the gooey maggots they eat. As he does so, the minister is amazed by the explosion of flavors and wonders how he has gone his whole life without trying those maggots for the first time. Bonimar allows himself to abandon his grumpy personality and party with the other flinks, which surprises Elian because she's never seen the minister like that. With the help of the rodents, Elian manages to find her parents and thanks the little ones for turning Bonimar into a less grumpy man. After a few more minutes of walking, the group arrives at the white tiger's nest, and the queen observes how these animals treat their cubs so that she can do the same with her daughter. Watching the young girl playing with the kittens, the king and queen remember that Elian is their daughter and are moved to tears when they realize what Elian represents in their lives. While celebrating the union of her family and having her parents back, the princess spots the Lake of Light at the top of a hill, and the trio run there. After climbing the mountain, Elian runs to the lake and is bathed in the light. But when her parents approach, the waves move away and form a mirror so that the couple can discover why they were like that. The truth is that the king and queen were crossing the dark forest when they suddenly started arguing, and without realizing it, were caught in the shadow cyclone. After finding out what happened, the couple begin to question whether they still want to be together, as they have stopped bringing out the best in each other. When she learns that her parents are thinking of separating, Elian is once again consumed by bad feelings and ends up drawing the shadow cyclone towards her. Curious, the girl decides to run away from her parents, feeling wrong because, after all the effort she has made to rebuild her family, they are thinking of separating. Consumed by hatred and resentment, Elian ends up being overtaken by the shadow, and when her parents try to reach her, they end up being captured by the royal guards, who use muzzles to stop the monsters from attacking and imprison them in cages. Believing that the princess is missing, Cardona orders her troops to split up to look for her, and Bonimar decides to ask for the help of the flinks to stop them during the battle. The minister asks for Fling's help to free the king and queen, who, after getting rid of their muzzles, order Nazar and the general to stop the attack. When they realize that their majesties are back, the minister and all the soldiers bow before them, and King Solon asks for Cardona's help to save his daughter. At this point, the princess is caught up in a whirlwind of emotions and decides to destroy her happiest memories in an attempt to get rid of the memories she has with her parents. Realizing that they are about to lose their daughter, The couple unite to pour the light of the lake on her, and seeing all the effort her parents are making to save her, Alien forgets the resentment she was harboring in her heart. Suddenly, the princess comes face to face with her younger self, and reveals that she would like to go back in time to relive all those happy moments she had with her parents. However, she accepts that all those memories are in the past and makes peace with herself, knowing that change is part of life. At that moment, Alien runs to her parents and hugs them, realizing that the fact that they want to separate has nothing to do with her. Together, the family fills the lake with light again, and the king and queen become human again. Then, Flink and Bonimar return to their respective bodies, and so the journey through the dark forest is complete. A year later, on Alien's 16th birthday, the girl is grateful that her life has returned to normal, even though her parents now live separately. When she arrives at the castle, the princess is greeted by all her friends and relatives, who have prepared a big surprise party for her. This year, Alien has the chance to celebrate her birthday properly, in the company of all the people she loves most. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.